The new patch is out, everybody is grinding for their gear, and all the YouTubers are showing off the size of their internet penis with all the new build videos. What a time to be alive, is it? Now, I'd consider myself pretty good with numbers, so that is of course a fight that I do not want to miss out on. I mean, I'll find a way to win. So today, I'm going to show you my build. And you probably already guessed it, it is a healer build. Not impressed? Well, hopefully you will be after this. Okay guys, I'm gonna shoot it on the floor right now. And it is already back. Again. And it's back again. Man, this is really strong. The cooldowns. Yeah, this is definitely gonna be good. That's right, that's a first aid on a 6-second cooldown. That first aid heals players for 220,000 health, and it overheals them as well. Combine that with a larger than normal immunizer support station and the fact that I still have over 400,000 toughness, and hopefully you will start to see what this build is all about. It's about keeping people alive, and it is pretty damn good at doing just that. So for anyone interested, let's get into the video. As you might have already seen, unlike my combat medic build, I'm actually not running this build with a 4-piece Tactician's Authority. Instead, I'm using the 4-piece Reclaimer. This has a couple of reasons, with the most important one being that the skill power scaling curve has stayed exactly the same from the 1.4 patch to the 1.5 patch. But of course the gear score for the items went up, and that means that it is relatively a lot easier for players to hit that 250,000 skill power soft cap. And thus, going with the extra 10% skill power on the Tactician's 3-piece and the extra 30% that you can potentially get from the stacks on the 4-piece, that would a lot of the times easily overshoot that 250,000 skill power number. And thus you would be losing out on a lot of value unless your base skill power is pretty low to begin with. Now, Reclaimer, on the other hand, offers consumables such as 40% increased healing or 30% extra skill power cooldown reduction that stacks on top of your skills. So they will not really be affected by that soft cap, and they can do a lot more for your skills than just more skill power. Another good reason to opt for Reclaimer instead of Tacticians is that you can pop your buffs, your power spike so to speak, at the start of a fight rather than getting your power spike from hitting multiple bullets over a longer period of time. That's why I've really come to love Reclaimer. Of course, besides the 4-piece, I'm also running with 2 high-end pieces. The first one is Specialized. I think we all know this by now. This item gives you a lot more skill power. And I think this backpack will only get stronger and stronger each patch simply because it gives you 200% of your firearms and stamina and adds that to your skill power. And of course, every patch we're getting more and more main stats for free because the item level of all the items, it goes up. And that in turn also means more free skill power with this backpack. The other high-end piece that I'm using is a rapid chest piece, which reduces healing skill cooldowns by 15%. This is pretty good, because of course I'm running this build with the first aid and a support station, so I will pretty much always be able to benefit from this, and it basically translates to 15% skill haste in my eyes. That's better than a Tactician's 2-piece. Now, you might be wondering, but Marco, why not run this build with a vigorous chest piece? Don't you want to overheal your team? And that's a very good question. The answer to that is, yes, I do want to overheal my team, and I am in fact overhealing my team as I said at the start of the video, even though I'm running with a rapid chest piece. The reason that this happens is that the developers changed Vigorous into a tanking piece instead of a healing piece. It no longer boosts your own skills to provide overheals to others, instead it gives the user overheal from anyone else's heals. This means that I can have all 3 of my teammates run with a Vigorous chest piece, and then they will all receive an overheal from either my booster shot or my defibrillator. It doesn't matter if I myself am wearing a Vigorous or not. Now for those that really want to go in depth with the stat rolls, let me roll you through these items real quick. The rapid chest piece has stamina as a main stat, exotic damage resilience for those grenades, extra armor and extra ammo capacity. The mask has electronics, skill power and enemy armor damage. The knee pads have stamina, armor, blind death resistance, enemy armor damage and shock resistance. And then the backpack is rolled into electronics with once again armor and then also burn resistance. The gloves, they could still be a bit better. They're kind of low on electronics, but the next reroll for this item is 18 million, so I guess this will have to do for now. It does have assault rifle damage though, which is pretty important. Damage to elites and critical hit damage. And then last up, the holster, it has armor on it and all the 3 main stats rolled as high as possible. I filled up all the mod slots with stamina mods that rolled armor, except for one, the mod that I have on the backpack. That one actually has a firearms mod, and the reason that I have this is because of the talents on my weapons. I needed a bit more firearms in order to unlock some of the talents that I wanted. My primary weapon is the Liberator. This is the named variant of the M4 or the LVOAC class assault rifles, which are probably one of the best weapons in the game right now. And this one is the one that I bought from the terminal vendor. It comes with Competent, Dominant, and Talented. Competent and Talented are 2 very powerful talents that I of course would want on my build. I am always popping heals, so I'm pretty much always getting 10% more damage, and Talented is of course great for extra skill power. Dominant kinda sucks, so I just rerolled that to Predatory, which also fits the build very well. Now you might be wondering why I would go for so many on-kill talents, such as Predatory or Talented, when this is a PvP focused build. But that is because all of these talents, they also work with skill objects. So killing, for example, a seeker mine, a turret, a support station will cause these talents to activate and will give you that 35% extra health and 15% more skill power over the next 20 seconds. Both of these talents can also be refreshed. So if you, for example, see a few guys spamming those mines or those turrets, this is almost a permanent buff. The second weapon that I use is very similar. It's a black market RPK. This thing is good for 2 reasons. First up, the RPK and the L86 weapons have the best hipfire accuracy in the game besides the SVD, which is extremely powerful for PvP if you're fighting someone 1-to-1. And second up, besides Competent and Talented, this weapon also has skills. So if I have my ulti on cooldown and we're just coming out of a big fight and we're waiting for the others to respawn, I can maybe kill a couple of mobs, and then when we get into the next fight, my ulti is already back up. Very, very useful indeed. The skills that I use are the Defibrillator, First Aid, and the Immunizer. I think the Immunizer speaks pretty much for itself. I've explained this already in several other videos. I have support station range performance mods in my performance mod slots, which makes it so that the range is close to 10.5 meters. And that gives my teammates more freedom to move around in PvP while still being healed and granted full immunity. But why the Defibrillator, you might ask? Well, I can tell you one thing, it's not for the revive. Trying to revive somebody with this thing doesn't work half of the time, so whenever somebody goes down, I tend to pop the recovery link anyway. But the main reasons that I run with this is for the high ally heal amount. This thing heals my friends up from a near-death situation, almost back to full overheal. And I also picked this up because of the lower base cooldown. Comparing this to the booster shot at 29 seconds or the overdose at 32 seconds when I have around 205,000 skill power, you can see how a 22 second cooldown instead on the Defibrillator can be very valuable, especially when combined with the amount that it heals. So let's talk about the cooldown, because a 22 second cooldown is of course not even close to that 6 second cooldown that I promised at the start of the video. The question is, how do we go from 22 seconds to 6 seconds? First up, as I already mentioned, we have a rapid chest piece, which does indeed reduce the cooldowns of your skills by 15%, even though it's not shown in the skills menu. So the 22 seconds is without rapid calculated. Then we have the soda consumable, which reduces skill cooldowns by another 30%. And then last up, I also have Triage equipped, which always reduces the cooldown by another 15% unless you literally hit nobody, but then it even has the potential to reduce cooldowns by 30 or even 45% if you heal multiple people with that heal. There are a few things that you have to know about Triage though to use it at its maximum efficiency, and the first thing is that there is a limit on how many times this can proc per second. This means that if you heal all your 3 teammates at the same time, Triage will only proc once, and your cooldowns will only be reduced by 15%. But, on the other hand, if you space it out a bit and you heal one teammate maybe a bit earlier than the other, you say that one of your teammates walks into the heal 2 seconds later, then you will get 2 procs of Triage, and you can even get a 3rd proc if the 3rd guy enters the heal even later. Obviously, it's not always possible to expect 2 or 3 Triage procs, so it's important that this cooldown was also short enough with just 1 proc of Triage, but it is something to keep in mind while playing. The second thing that you have to keep in mind with Triage is that you can get an extra proc of it if you have critical save enabled and you use a medkit in your last health segment. This is probably a bug, so it may or may not eventually get fixed. I don't think it's a super big deal, but there may be moments in the game where it could save your life because you get your heal out 15% quicker. It's something to remember for now. At this moment, you might still have the question or the comment that in order to get your cooldowns this short, you have to be using the soda. which means two things. One, that you always have to be using the soda instead of any of the other 5 remaining consumables, and 2, that it doesn't have a 100% uptime. And you're right by saying both of those things. The duration of the soda is only 1 minute, while the consumable cooldown sits at 2 minutes, so at best you're looking at a 50% uptime, which, let's be honest, is probably going to be more in the 30 to 40% range due to you wanting to activate the consumable at the right moment. And yes, you are always going to be forced to use the soda if you want cooldowns like this. That means that, for example, you cannot go for the canned food, which would increase the healing amount by 40%. That's also a very strong pickup as well if you're playing the support role, and something that I used to play with in the past. But because I'm playing this build with the defibrillator first aid, the burst healing amount is already high enough to the point where we don't really need more heals. We already have enough to pretty much stay alive forever. And I figured that having weaker heals at faster intervals instead of more powerful heals at longer intervals comes with a lot of added benefits. You, for example, have less wasted heals, where a lot of the HP that is on the heal is not used because the person would have been back to full health just fine anyway, even without the 40% extra. And of course, with more heals you get even more triage procs, which reduce cooldowns even more. And it kind of turns into that endless cycle. You get more cleanses, which remove negative status effects. And at the end of the day, if you're playing with 2 healing skills, faster cooldowns result in more healing as well. It may not be 40% more healing, but I'm willing to bet that it gets pretty damn close. On top of that, you of course also cannot forget that the consumable of choice will last 50% longer on the Reclaimer user himself. That is because of the Reclaimer 2-piece, so picking a consumable that would benefit a healer the most would be the best option, as the healer will have the highest uptime of this. It is because of these reasons that I believe that the 30% cooldown reduction is probably the strongest of them anyway if you're running the build that I'm running. The 2 remaining talents that I'm running with, besides Triage and Critical Save, are Combat Medic and Death by Proxy. Combat Medic is of course incredibly strong in group play, as it allows you to save teammates or give them back 40% of their health instantly by using a medkit yourself, even if you don't necessarily need it. Oh, and another little bonus, the Combat Medic also heals the support station by 40% of its life every time that you pop a medkit, so not that it really matters, but I guess it's an added benefit. Death by Proxy became one of my favorite talents in patch 1.4, as players are starting to use a lot of skills outside of the pulse, which made it really easy for me to shoot down a Seeker Mine or a turret and get that 20% extra skill power for 30 seconds. This talent of course also stacks with Talented, which I have on my gun, so for every skill object that I destroy, I get 35% extra skill power, which turns my 205k skill power into almost 277k. And even though that goes quite a bit over the soft cap, it still makes quite a big difference in terms of cooldowns and healing output. Because if we look at the defibrillator, that goes from 220,000 health and 22 seconds on the cooldown to 277,000 health on a 15.5 second cooldown. That is of course unbuffed without rapid, soda or triage calculated in. I don't even know what the cooldown is with everything up. And that is the build. This is my new PvP healer build for the 1.5 patch. Now, if you're not convinced yet, or if you simply feel like seeing a bit more, I've also uploaded some gameplay on my channel with this build, so you can not only see it in theory, but you can also see it in practice. You might have already seen it on the channel, but if not, there will be a link in the description box down below for you to follow. But anyway, for this video, I'm going to have to let you go. Now, for those solo players, don't worry. I've also heard ya. I know that a lot of you also want some sort of solo player PvP build because you might not always have a team to run with. And that one is also coming to the channel soon, as well as more of those weapon modding guides. But of course, that is all going to take a bit of time. So until then, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys later. Or like they say, in the Netherlands. Zie je later!